The story of Choo Choo Charles feels like a straight out of a nightmare. A terrifying monster is roaming an island, and no one is truly safe from this demonic train. But while running around this world is thrilling, it's possible to miss the overarching story in this open world game. So what is the story behind Choo Choo Charles? Well, I'm glad you asked, because this is how the nightmare became reality. Our story begins with the aftermath of a catastrophe. Our player gets a call from Eugene, who is a supervisor for the Charles Mining Company on an island called Aranearum. Appropriately named, since this means spider's web or cobweb in Latin. From the conversation we figure out that our character runs a museum, and that there is something big on the island, which would look really nice in our establishment. This alludes to Choo Choo Charles, which makes me think our museum is centered around taxidermy. Eugene only mentions that something big is there, and that it involves monster hunting. So I'm thinking our character runs a curiosity shop with a freakish taxidermy collection. We're basically Chuck Testa for all you ancient memers out there. Perhaps our collection is focused on cryptids. Eugene says that if anyone can bring this thing down, it's us, which makes me believe we're an experienced hunter. A hunter who brought no weapons with them to this awful encounter. As we row into the island, we find out our target is called Charles. Half demon train, half giga spider, as Eugene explains. This island is a place where miners dig their own graves, which sets the tone for how we're supposed to feel about this cursed place. We make our way up to a train shed that holds a train whose operator was slain by Charles. The hope is that we can use this train for ourselves. As Eugene and our player inspect this train, it's apparent that someone else was planning on using it to hunt Charles. The weapon on the back wasn't there when Eugene first evacuated the island. After firing some test shots, we embark on our journey, only to be instantly ambushed by Thomas the Tank Engine's emo cousin. Honestly, I kinda freaked out when Eugene died because I thought I did something wrong. Upon running up to Eugene, we learned that Eugene actually used to be a hunter, or in the military with us, at some point in the past. Eugene's dying words set the player off on a quest to find eggs on the island and his son. And with that, our solo nightmare begins. Eugene has apparently told everyone on the island that we will be coming, as most NPCs are both accommodating and helpful. And as we find out in a note, everyone on the island is counting on Eugene to help them. Unfortunately, they don't know he's dead. We start to learn more about our character as we progress. Darrow refers to us as a fancy pants monster hunter, which sort of solidifies the theory about what our museum holds. Helen informs us that Charles will retreat into the wilderness when harmed, but this is when our character finds out what the eggs are for that Eugene was talking about. A way to duel Charles to the death, without him retreating. But this is when we learn about the island's additional threat, Warren Charles III, who has placed armed guards around the island. But to understand the reason why Warren is doing all of this, we'll need to travel all around the island looking for clues. The oldest man-made buildings on the island are the crumbling towers, and it's within these buildings that Warren keeps the files and documents on the mine. One such note mentions that prior to discovering any of these eggs, the goal of the mining company was simple. They were looking for gold. However, with bankruptcy on the horizon, things started to look bleak for Charles Mining Company. Unknown from a worker's perspective, things were looking good. Morale was up and there were no complaints. This was until the tragedy that occurred in the mines. We find out that Eugene reached out to Warren with an urgent letter, but never got a response back initially. They broke through a wall into a large cavern in the southern mines and found something strange. It turns out they discovered ruins deep underground. This discovery was the breakthrough that Warren needed, and this finding resulted in multiple mining sites opening. In an abandoned mining location on the island, we can find a note that outlines this clearly. Quote, "Mining in the new location has been going smoothly, but we found nothing of interest yet. The path we've been digging seemed rather unconventional, but Warren finally revealed that our team is looking for more ruins, similar to the ones unearthed at the southern mine. After visiting the other ruins with Gale, I am intrigued that we may find more to explore, as the ruins seem to be quite grand." End quote. These ruins are scattered all around the island, and this excited Warren. However, this excitement led to catastrophe, as one of the mines had a cave-in which killed several employees. After clearing away the rubble, something profound was discovered. Glowing eggs deep underground. And this is where all the trouble started. If we talk to Ronnie outside the old mining towers, upon the discovery of the eggs, it seems Warren became tight-lipped. The mining operation was kept a secret from the mainland, and Warren didn't bother to report the cave-in to anyone. It was swept under the rug, but the eggs that were found had mysterious properties, and these eggs would bring about the horrors on the island. Now, there's a gap in the story at this point that isn't clearly explained, but we do know that the spider train Charles was created from the power of the eggs. It doesn't seem this monster hatched from an egg as a train, but more so this spider entity morphed into a train. I think this is pretty clear too, as Choo Choo Charles has the same mining company branding on it that our train does. This shows us that a train was possibly possessed by this monster, and Charles as an entity was born. How exactly this took place step by step is unknown, but we have some clues. On the island, we can find a note by Greg, and this note talks about how Warren is supposedly trying to raise more of the spider monsters. An army of sorts, for world domination. They found a whole nest of eggs after clearing out the debris from the cave-in. The miners spent months sucking out the energy from the eggs, but before the last 3 could be destroyed, Warren stopped them after realizing how powerful they were. Apparently, the eggs are as hard as diamonds as well. We must take this information with a grain of salt though, because Greg seems a bit out there. As we speak to him, he's certain that if these eggs hatch, they will surely turn to monstrous creatures like Charles. This backs up the idea that the creatures within the eggs aren't always trains. Greg is a bit of a conspiracy theorist, and another worker, Gail, comments on this. Gail mentions in a note that Greg had told them that Warren was planning to use spider trains for world domination. Gail disputes this absurd claim, but goes on to tell us things that we can confirm are true. He mentions that some sort of device called a prism was able to extract life energy from the batch of eggs. However, it sounds like Charles existed prior to this experiment, as he attacked while it was happening. Talking to Gale reveals that this island always had an ancient pyramid on it, with a prism at the top. He mentions that the prism seems to have one purpose, and that it's designed to destroy monster eggs. When the eggs are placed inside it, a massive beam of energy fires off, as if it's being drained from the eggs themselves. Gale continues on to say that people are hoping this will draw Charles into a fight, as he tries to defend the eggs. But then we are given a warning that Charles himself can be powered up from the eggs, as this was witnessed once before. Gale mentions that he knows Warren has skeletons in the closet, but he actually thinks he was trying to look out for people. That's why he hid the eggs, and attempted to evacuate everyone. It's strange though, because at the same time, Warren's guards took on the attire of cultists. They wore giant masks, and seemingly worshipped Charles. Was this simply because looking like Charles was believed to make the demon train not attack you? It makes me wonder if Warren wasn't evacuating people out of concern or safety, but because it aligned with his interest to take over the island, and create outposts to defend his discoveries. Even if world domination wasn't his true plan, it was said that the miners drained the egg's energy for months. So they didn't find gold, but did Warren find an alternative energy source to gas or coal? Is this how he became wealthy? He's seen in a gold suit, and certainly comes off that way. There's a couple other things to note here too about this area. Charles isn't the only monster in the island. There's 2 more, one being the swamp monster Barry that will eat people, and the other is a Slenderman-like ghost. There's weird dolls out there too somewhere. This world seems to be full of monsters, as many times throughout our adventure we are referred to a monster hunter casually. It's possible Barry, the swamp monster, always lived in the lake on the island, but it doesn't help that a cannibal witch named Lisbeth Murkwater also resides nearby. Is Barry a monster that hatched from an egg at one point? It's hard to tell. Furthermore, we have the ghost entity that attacks us when we're playing the mini-quest that's like Slender the 8 Pages. As the monster approaches us, we can hear the screams of tons of people, and for some reason, this ghostly entity keeps putting up children's drawings of Charles and other monster-like figures. A nearby note even suggests that the specter is a culmination of lost crew members who died in the cave-in, or it could be something else entirely. Either way, the concept of ghosts is casually addressed by Sasha as we talk to her. She recognizes us as a monster hunter, and wastes no time in asking us if we can deal with ghosts. Warren is aware that sinister spirits have sprung up in the island as well. In a nearby watchtower, we can see that he is surveillancing the boulder field where the spirit has been sighted. The workers mention that Warren isn't interested in hearing about Choo Choo Charles or Sasha, who have been spotted there, but he is interested in anything else that may be seen. The employees don't know what he means though. As we draw near to the end of our adventure, we eventually collect the remaining eggs on the island. Once we talk to Paul, Eugene's son, at the Aranearum municipal building and set the explosives, we'll get the key to the temple. And this temple contains the prism that we need the eggs for. Right before our player puts the final egg in the prism, Warren Charles III steps out with a team of guards, telling us to back away from the shrine. He says we don't know what we are doing, and insists that we put the egg down slowly. Warren claims we'll hurt far too many people if we finish what we're doing. And, in an act of defiance, we slam the egg into the prism, unleashing a powerful beam of energy that changes the sky red. Warren yells at us, condemning our actions, as we've doomed us all. And just then, Charles creeps down from the roof, and he morphs into a mutant version of himself. This is when Charles eats Warren whole, and the final fight begins. However, something has changed about Charles. He has the ability to teleport around the map, and warp us to new locations as well. Whatever power these eggs contain, they've enabled Charles to essentially wormhole travel across the island, and pull our train into the jump as well. They've also completely changed the atmosphere, as the world is cast in blood-red light. As we pummel Charles and defeat him, we eventually warp to the bridge where Charles is blown into the air, falling down below and impaling himself on a support structure for the bridge, and ending his reign of terror. But as the credits roll, we see that beneath the bridge is another undisturbed section of ruins, filled to the brim with these monster eggs, and one of them is getting ready to hatch. Whether this means an army of trained monsters is about to be released, or due to the death of Charles, a new monster is capable of being born now that the previous one has perished, it's unknown what this means for the future of the world. Perhaps we'll find out in the future in a later content update when the game comes to consoles. But for the time being, that is the entire story of Choo Choo Charles explained. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it, and I'll see all of you in my next video. Cheers!